crafty friends. This is Christy over at Crafty Christie's Creations, and today I'm going to show you how to make two different kinds of faux leather keychains. So let's jump in and get started. Here we are in Silhouette Studio, and we're going to make a couple of different kinds of keychains. The first kind we're going to make is just a letter. So I'm going to grab my text tool and I'm going to type out the letter, and I'm going to make a C. And I'm going to do it capital. I'm going to click on it and I'm going to grab the font I want, and I'm going to use impact font. I want this to be a nice thick bold letter. And then to do a front and a back, we're going to go ahead and make a copy, and I'm going to mirror that below. Oop, that mirrored above. That works too. I always get those confused. Do you find this helpful? Make sure you smash that like button and hit subscribe so you don't miss out on any future Silhouette Studio tutorials. Now let's jump back in where we left off. All right, we've got our two pieces here. Actually, before we do that, let's go ahead and get this sized the size that we want. So we know what font we've got. I'm going to make this 2 inches. So with it selected, I'm going to go ahead and weld it first. That just kind of makes it its own shape. You could also just come down here and you could have also chose to make it a compound path. And that you may have to do over in the modify panel, and you could make it a compound path. Either way, for this process, it's going to get you the same result. And now I'm going to come up here and I'm going to change the size. I've got my aspect ratio on lock. So I'm going to change my height to 2 inches tall. And now I'm going to come over to my replicate panel and I'm going to mirror a copy below. And I wasn't sure if these were completely symmetrical, and it looks like they are, but we've got 2 copies. And what we're going to do now is grab our rectangle tool, and we're going to make a little rectangle that's going to fit in here. Oop. And I'm going to hit V on my keyboard to bring me back to my selection tool. I'm going to get rid of that. The keychain that I'm using has an 1-inch wide surface for this little piece to wrap on. So I want to make this, I'm going to unlock my ratio aspect so I can maneuver these individually. And I'm going to make this 0.75 inches wide, so it'll fit pretty well on that piece, but won't be too bad. And then let's make this a full inch tall. That might not sound like a lot. I am going to have to fold this in half. All right, I'm happy with that size there. Now what we need to do, I'm going to grab all these and then I'm going to hit Control and plus, and that's going to zoom in. And we want to get a better look at what's going on here. And you can see we've got our C and our rectangle here overlapping on this bottom piece, but not on this top piece. And I want these to overlap the same amount. So in order to do that, I think it's going to be helpful to turn on the grid lines. So you can go to View, and then we can do Show Grid. It doesn't matter what the grid lines are, how far apart they are. All I'm going to do is line up these pieces on the grid line. And then I'm going to line this one up on the grid line. I'm going to grab all of them and I'm going to align them to the middle. Nope. To the center. There we go. That way they're evenly spaced left and right. And I need these to overlap a little bit. So I'm going to grab this top C and I'm going to use my arrow key so that way I know I'm going to use the same amount on both. And I'm going to come down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That should be enough overlap. I might actually come to this. Let's see what happens. That's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let's do 10 for good measure. Now you can see here we've got that overlap where the bottom of the C is going to overlap with this. So you're not going to be able to necessarily tell so much that that is a C at the bottom, but I think that'll be okay. And so now we're going to grab this bottom one again using my arrow keys. I'm going to go up 10 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that is just to make sure we have the same amount for each of these pieces being taken off. So I'm going to turn off my grid. I think it's easier to see without it. And now you can see how that looks there, and that looks good. Let's bring all of this. Now what I'm going to do, let's bring everything to the middle here so we can see what we're doing. And then let's zoom in some more. Okay, so you can see everything's welded together there. That looks good. We'll zoom out one more. Okay, now what I can do is grab everything, and I am just going to, actually before I do that, because I'm going to I'm going to cut this all out of leather. But I'm going to also decorate with some heat transfer vinyl on there. So I want to grab this one, and I'm going to do an internal offset. So internal, bring this over here, internal offset. So it's going to go on the inside, and it looks like I want this to be a little bit more rounded. Let's pick how big of an offset we would like. I want some of that to show. I think that looks good. So we're going to do a 0.1, and looks like we're going to have to do square corners, which is fine because our corners here are square. I like that. I think we'll leave it just like that. We can hit apply. And then I can take this and move it. That internal offset, I only need one copy. I can make another copy later, and then I can cut this out of heat transfer vinyl to do on the front. I can do it on the back as well, so both sides look the same, or I can leave the back with just the leather. But now that I've done that, I can go ahead and grab all of these, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to hit weld. Now we have complete shapes, and now you can see when I bring in this piece, got to kind of eyeball where the center of it will be. And I'm going to do this just to give you an idea what this is going to look like. I've got purple leather. Whoops. And then I was thinking I was going to do like a glittery white glitter. We'll get rid of the outline color so you can't really tell. And it looks like it's going behind it. So what I'm going to do is hit this bring to front button up top, and now this will put this on the front. And just for this, what I can do is align center, and then that's what it would look like. This would be glittery, and then with my purple leather. That looks good. So this project is ready to send, so I can send both of these pieces to the cutting machine, get those cut out, and then we can put our keychain together. So now I'm going to zoom back out. I'm going to change the color of this just so I don't lose it on my screen here. Let's do a lighter purple. I'm going to put these kind of up into the corner. And then the other kind that we're going to do is just a regular design. I'm going to go into my designs here. All right. I'm going to pull in my Hustle 24/7. And we're going to shrink this down. So I'm going to just shrink that. And again, kind of looking at the size overall, I really don't want a keychain to be any larger than probably 2.5 tall. So let's go 2.5 on the height. I locked my ratio aspect, and then it's going to be 3.5 wide. That's going to be a pretty big keychain. Now to make this one, I can go ahead and cut all of this out of heat transfer vinyl out of the different colors, and that's great. And what I want to do to cut the leather part is I'm going to make an external offset. So again, I've got my offset, but now we're going to do an offset, an external instead of internal, so just a regular offset. And looks like, again, it's that 0.1, which is great. And then I'm going to hit, we've got rounded edges. I like that too. And then you can see we've got some things here that are kind of overlapping. We can clean some of that up. So I'm going to go ahead and hit apply. I can get rid of that. These offset, now I can pull that out of there. And then this, I'm going to go ahead and give it a fill color. So if we've got pink, let's make this, let's just fill it, and we're going to get rid of the line color. It's a little bit easier to see. You can see how things don't really fill in all that great. But now I can double tap to get to the point editing. And I can just click. And I'm just going to hit delete all the way around this centerpiece. And that's going to clean up the centers that I don't want. So I'm just hitting, tapping on one and hitting delete. So that deleted all the centers, but we still have this really strange shape. I don't think I really love that. Actually, I think I'm going to make a bigger offset. So let's go back to our offset. That is the 0.1. And let's just make that a little bit bigger to grab all of the pieces. I like that better. Let's see. I'm looking at how these pieces are going to work. It's going to have some bubbles. We can get rid of some of that. I think I like that better. We'll go ahead and move that over. And now we can see a better idea what that's going to look like. That looks better. So we're going to go through that same process. Double tap. Click on these. We're going to delete these. Okay. That's a much better shape. I like that better. And then again, that'll all fit on the center there. Okay, let's get rid of this one. And now I can give this a fill color so we can see better what we're doing. Let's just make it green. And again, I'm going to do this double-sided. We're going to wrap it around our keychain. So I'm going to make another mirror, and I'm going to mirror this one above. You can see this is the bottom, so when you fold it over, like if this was your fold line right here, these pieces, how they're going to meet up. I've got an irregular shape, so this is going to be interesting because it's already touching right here. But let's see what happens when we bring in our rectangle. And we can add that kind of wherever we want. I'm going to hit V to bring back my selection tool. Again, let's check out how this is looking. I want this to be 0.75 wide. We can take off the, we're going to make this 1 inch tall. Okay, that's how that's going to look. Now, the problem is, where are we going to put this so that everything is in a good place? Let's pull this down. Let's pull this down. Grab both of these. And let's go ahead and align them center. So that's where it's going to connect. So if I want it there, we're going to have to really bring that down into the design to be able to grab all of it. So now if I bring this one back, that piece is going to overlap. We're going to have to fill this gap. All right, so I'm going to delete this one. Now that we kind of know we have to fill that gap, I'm going to go ahead and just mirror that up top. It lets that piece touch. That just makes our life easier. Let's grab this one, and all we're going to do is stretch this out. We don't really know how tall we're making it, so let's go ahead and turn on our grid lines again. So view, grid. We just happen to be right here on this line, which is really cool. So that line's there. We've got a bump right here. Here's that same bump. Looks like we need to go to this line here. So I'm going to grab this. I'm going to come up to the line here. So even though we were guessing where it had to go, because I have this piece, I just went ahead and mirrored it. This was already touching. I already put this where I wanted it on this side. And then we just knew like this is where the line was, and you just go to that same line because everything is symmetrical based on how these green pieces are sitting. I hope that makes sense. All right, we can go ahead and turn off our grid lines again. And then I'm going to grab all of these pieces, and we can go over to our modify panel, and we're going to weld. All of that looks green. Looks great. You can see the cut line here. And look, we've got a little bit of a border that didn't quite, I don't really like that. So I'm going to undo edit. Undo edit. Nope, that didn't work. Let's do this. Up here, you can just hit the back button to get back here. And I'm going to go ahead and turn that grid line on one more time. And I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to grab my mouse, and I want to zoom in right here. We zoomed in really far. You can see, though, my box isn't quite all the way to the edge. So I'm going to grab this and bring it to the point where it touches. And then we're zoomed in so far, I can just, using the scroll on my mouse, I'm scrolling down, and I'm just going to pull this piece down to where it overlaps. And now it's gone. So we ended up at 1.842 inches tall here. But you can also see it's going to cut this, and these are going to be separate pieces. So when I fold this in half, we've got this area here that will fold. This will be separate, and it'll all work out. Okay, we're going to zoom out a little bit. We can turn those grid lines back off. Grab this, and we're going to weld. See how that edge looks a lot smoother now? I like that. Okay, this one is also ready. Again, this will be cut from leather. And then I can cut this actually from 2 different colors of heat transfer vinyl. When I do that, I will make myself some registration marks. Yes, I know that you cannot heat registration marks, but even just having those there, I will be able to cut the different pieces and get them laying in the right spot when I lay them over my design. So what that's going to look like, let's zoom out some more. I'm hitting Control and the minus sign to zoom out. And then I'm going to pull this part down here. I'm going to right click and I'm going to ungroup. So now this is it separate. We've got separate bounding boxes. Those are separate pieces. I'm going to grab my rectangle tool and I'm just going to hit V. I've made one. I'm going to pull a copy. So Control, click, Alt, not Control. Alt or Option, click and drag. I'm going to put this one out here and I'll leave this one here. I want to make sure these are the same height. So I'm going to make sure they are lined up on the bottom. Okay. These, I'm hitting Shift to grab both. And I'm going to right click and I'm going to copy. And then edit. And then I'm going to paste in front. So Control plus F. That gave me 2 copies in the same place. Now with one selected and with this select, I'm going to select the word hustle. So I grabbed all of those. And now I can click and drag those off to the side. We're going to group those. And then I'm going to grab these and group. So when I go to cut it, I'm going to cut and I'm going to put a box around all of this. So I'll make a weeding box. Okay, V to get back to my selection tool. Again, Alt or Option, click and drag. And then obviously we'll have to make some adjustments to our box here. Make sure it fits. Okay, so those are ready. And then what I'm going to do when I put them on here, I'm going to line them up. And then these pieces will probably be on the table, and that's okay. I just want to line them all up. And then maybe I can only do this once. Use the hinge method to lay them down so everything's in the right place. I'll show you that when we get there. But those are the keychains and they're now ready to cut. Here is everything. We've got our pieces of faux leather cut out. Here's the heat transfer vinyl we're going to put on there. I've got the keychain pieces. The easy press over here is ready to go. And then I've got some fabric glue here to glue these pieces together. So I'm going to start off by putting the heat transfer vinyl on these pieces. So I'm going to move this out of the way a little bit, and then let's get these weeded. And these are, I did all glitters. This is the C. Okay. So when you cut these designs out, you want to make sure you mirror all of the heat transfer vinyl. I put a weeding box around these to make it a little bit easier for the ones that I'm going to layer up, and I'll show you how I'm going to make that work. But let's see if we can't. So there's my registration marks. know it looks like a lot of wasted vinyl there, but we did that with the registration marks so I can make sure things line up, especially because I've got the shape cut out. I want these to line up correctly. So there's the 24/7. And then this one is the Hustle. So again, I've got that weeding box. That just helps me know where my design is sitting. And then I've got lots of extra here to help get this set up so that it's all going to work out and fit. All right, so let's start off with the easy one. And we're gonna start with the C. And you know, when it gets folded, I want it to read this direction. So I'm gonna put the C up here. And I'm just gonna try to get that centered on there the best that I can. Turn this around to me. Oh, and because when we did the design, I had it here instead of here, so this part is actually a little bit thicker because it's meant to fit up here. So this can be, but if that's the front, it's going to be upside down. Well, I'm just going to put it on here, and it's going to be a little goofed up. So word to the wise, this impact font is not symmetrical. That's pretty well centered on there. I like that. All right, so I'm gonna put a little bit of this under my design to act as a cushion. And then I'm gonna throw a little bit, just kind of sandwich it in between there. I'll pull over my heat press. I'm at 275 degrees for 30 seconds. Just gonna press down on that and give it some good pressure. All right, let's see how that looks. That is good and hot, that's for sure. Just wanna see how well, and that's not gonna peel up. Okay, so let's fold it, and I'm gonna do that again. I'm trying to use less heat and more time because of the leather. I don't want to heat it up too much and burn it. So I'm just going to take it slow and low heat. All right, let's see how it looks now. Still doesn't want to come off of there. Okay, let's go for a third time. Okay. All right, that is good. Okay, so we had to do that 3 times with the 30 seconds at 275. And then that stuck on there really well. Okay, we'll let that cool down. And then let's pull this one over. So again, this is gonna get folded in half. I'm only putting my design on one side, and I'm just making sure I'm picking the correct side. So really, I should have put the registration marks on the bottom, but I think they might be out of the way enough for me to do this. That looks pretty good there. So I'm gonna catch this one little corner of this registration mark. So I'm just gonna peel that corner a little bit. Actually, before I even do that, let's do this. I'm gonna take this design, and I know that that 24/7 is gonna fit in this area here. So I am just cutting my transfer because I am terrible at lining things up. So I am just gonna cut all of this, cutting it pretty close to those letters. Okay, so I cut a chunk of the transfer out of that piece, and that should give me room to then line up my registration marks trying to get those perfectly aligned. Okay, so those registration marks, now you can see I've got those. Oop, this side needs to go up a little bit. Okay, those are lined up perfectly. Now, it might be hard to see here. Some of that transfer is still double lapped. I'm gonna cut around this bottom half some more to really give that room to fit in there. So I'm cutting again on the teal piece, cutting away some of that transfer so that we have room for the other piece to fit under there. So if you had a really good pair of scissors that had like a very good tip on them, that would be ideal for this. So that way you can get really good fine details in there. That looks like we have a little bit more of overlap. Okay, I'm gonna just rip that away. Okay, now I'm sure it's hard to tell, but you can look at that and you can see where I've cut it and where that overlap is, okay? So everything, the 24/7, there's no extra carrier sheet under it. So now all of that is in a good place. I can get rid of the registration marks on the green. That is what's going to be touching the fabric. The white ones are just gonna melt onto the green carrier sheet. Totally fine. Can leave those on there. Now I can bring my leather back in. Nice and flat. Actually, let's preheat this and see if that'll save us a little bit of time. We'll just do that for a couple seconds. Okay. Now I'm just gonna lay this on here, get it nice and centered where I think it'll look the best. I think that looks good right there. Again, those registration marks that would be on the cloth are taken away. Now, the word hustle does have 2 layers of carrier sheet on it, so it may take a little bit more time to add some heat to this to get it to really press in. But let's see what we can do here. So again, 275 for 30 seconds. And if we have to do this more than once, then we will. Okay, let's take a gander. It's so hot. Okay, that didn't stick. Nope, not ready yet. So we'll go ahead and hit that again. Another 275 for 30 seconds. Okay. All right. It's not completely stuck down. I'm going to do that one more time here. Okay, this white one doesn't want to come off yet, so we'll go ahead and do it one more time. Try to get our pressure really good on there. Let's see. Okay, the white is good and stuck on. For the most part. Okay. Okay, that one still wants a little bit of work. Again, I thought so where some of those were overlapped. We'll cover it back up. We'll go one more time here. Okay, all of that's not completely stuck down. You see how the registration mark stayed on here, one came off, but none of them are on the project. So let's go ahead, cover that up one more time. We'll do one more from this side. Okay, everything looks good and melted on there. That looks great. Okay, so we've got our two designs. Bring these back into the picture here. And now, I'll pull in, I'm gonna probably just use silver on both of these. All right, so now what we're gonna do is kind of fold and feed our design through here. Okay, and then we can do that. Now what we can do is just use, we've got our fabric glue, and this will dry clear. I'm going to be pretty generous. Oop. And I want to try to get all the way out to the edges so that way things don't fray. Okay. Now I can take this one. I'm going to line up the C here, and then the bottom, and then I'm just going to press all of that together, pulling at the top here to keep things taut. Okay, and then we're going to set that aside and put something heavy on it. I don't have anything heavy sitting with me, but I would definitely put something heavy on this. I will probably go and stick this under a stamp positioner to really let that glue down into place, and then try to clean up the edges. Just gonna flip this over, check what this side looks like. Okay, we'll set that aside, and now we can do the same thing with this one. So this one's going to be fun to really fold up on here. Okay, not too bad. Come on. Okay, so again, I'm gonna put that fabric glue on here. All right, we'll fold this over. Again, I'm gonna try to just match up my edges. Okay, once you've got those edges matched up, everything's looking good, you can just kind of press down really well. And then again, I'm gonna put these under something heavy to let them dry really well. But there are our 2 keychains. Well, there you have it. That's how you can make some really cute faux leather keychains in Silhouette Studio.